Now, to delve more about anger management for teenagers, we have clinical psychologists having sharing some thoughts and also some insight with us here in the studio. Mutiara Maharini, thank you so much, Mahari, for being in our studio.
Thank you for having me again. It's so nice.
In such a weekend. So, Mahari, regarding to the case that we just saw, what leads to this kind of extreme act of violence?
Okay, so I guess the first thing I need to do is give a disclaimer first.
Yeah.
Because of course there aren't really a lot of details that have already been explained in the media about this case. And secondly, I am not the psychologist handling the psychological assessments, right? So what I'm going to say is an analysis based on the general cases that happen for adolescents that do have violent kind of behaviors. So as any kind of behavior, especially violent behaviors, we definitely need to see the biopsychosocial factors behind whatever happened there.
Okay, what is a psychosocial?
Yes, so behind every kind of behavior, there's always a biological explanation, a psychological explanation, and a social explanation. So the biological explanation is usually because of hormones or maybe brain development changes. It can also be genetics. The psychological is usually about the upbringing, or maybe it could be also about the attitudes, the thoughts that the child has, the kind of psychological stages that it's going through. And the social kind of factors are about the people who surround this teenager, about the kind of media that this kid watches, about how their peers react to their anger, stuff like that. So it's obviously a very complex kind of thing. There are always a lot of underlying factors. But for teenagers, adolescents that do violent behaviors, the number one thing we can say is they are obviously having emotional problems, that they do not have the coping skills readily to help them because they don't know what to do, and then they resort to violence.
They could not regulate it.
Yes, they cannot regulate it. But does that mean that every teenager that is, going through mood fluctuations and then maybe is having a kind of like rebellious attitude, does that mean that they all do violence? No, right? Not all. I mean,
no, they don't.
like some teenagers are like you. They resort to listening to music when they're angry, and then it's fine. But what usually becomes the biggest factor is the social factor. So if the people surrounding them, are used to normalizing violent behaviors, then the possibility of the adolescent doing a violent behavior becomes way, way higher than if they have never seen that kind of stuff before. Also, the kind of movies they watch, the kind of YouTube series they watch, that very much can impact the way that this teenager thinks, and they can think that, oh, it's acceptable to hit people, it's acceptable to express my anger in unhealthy ways.
In such a way.
Yeah.
So it seems like it becomes more complex than bio, psycho, and
Social.
because especially the social aspect is not just the people who are surround you. I was gonna say it's the parents, isn't it? They have bad parents, but no, it's
also the things that they want.
The school friends and or the neighborhood kids. Or anything. Like if you live in a in a bad neighborhood, people do bad things, and you will be likely.
You will resort to that kind of behavior as well.
Because that's the normal, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So what are the common triggers that can lead to this kind of?
I mean,
anger?
as we all have been teenagers, I'm sure we know that what usually triggers us.
No, I went directly to 30.
Oh, that's amazing. No wonder you're so mature, right? The first thing, of course.
Or the other way around.
Did you only get younger?
I'm sorry.
As you were saying.
No, it's okay. So, I mean, of course, we've all experienced that when we were teenagers, we had a lot of conflicts with our parents, with our family. That was like a thing for us. And sometimes we felt cool about it, that we had an anger issue with our parents. That was one thing. But then it's also friends, the peers surrounding the kid is, I don't know if I'm going to say kid or teenager. Okay, I'm going to say teenager. The teenager is very important. So what they think is cool is what they think is cool, right? And that really, really impacts on how that kid is going to get triggered by the things that maybe their family never thought them to. You know, you should get triggered if somebody does this. But, oh, their friends got triggered because some seniors said they were like losers. And then they said, oh, my friends are getting triggered by that. Okay, I should also be like that because I'm a cool kid, you know? That very much influences them. But those are the kind of normal day-to-day things that can trigger a teenager. But the not so normal things are maybe significant life changes, maybe like their parents got a divorce, a death of a loved one, adoption, traumatic events such as disasters, etc.
Yeah.
Those kind of things can really impact a teenager in significant ways. Like it could really change them as a person.
All right, as you were saying that the emotional level of teenagers kind of like fluctuative based on hormones, let's say. And we spoke yesterday with also clinical psychologists as well, but in a topic of bullying. But in that sense as well, she was explaining about the development of the frontal lobe that is not really in a full circle, not in complete complete form, that makes them quite, fluctuative.
Yes.
But in that sense as well, it's normal for teenagers to feel the anger. As Yasha was actually asking me, what did I do when I felt mad and stuff like that. But how can we differentiate between normal anger to problematic anger issue in teenagers?
Okay, I think, well, if you are a parent and you are watching this, this is something that you definitely need to teach your children or your teenagers. It is that the anger experience, the experience of us feeling angry, is completely healthy and normal. They should know that. That's the first thing. So they shouldn't feel like ashamed or proud. It should just be a neutral kind of thing if they feel angry. But what they have to be able to control is their anger expression.
Okay, the anger expression.
Yes.
The
So
result from the anger.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So for all of us, everybody experiences anger, but the way we react to it, the way we react to that emotion is what differentiates someone who is normal and has anger issues.
Okay.
Right? So there's nothing wrong with being angry. What's wrong is what you do with that emotion. That's what you then need to see if your teenager is, starting to act up, starting to have some kind of shenanigans. Then what you should see is that the first thing you should see is the severity. So if they are having a little bit of anger issues and it lasts for more than a week, I would say that that's already a sign. If it's just like 1 to 3 days, it's pretty normal. I mean, we experience that too, right? But if it's already more than a week, they have sudden changes of behavior, like maybe they're just in their room, or you see them kind of like punching a pillow, or they might be even doing aggressive things to their friends.
Yeah.
That's definitely already a sign that you probably should bring them to a mental health professional. The second thing is that was the duration, right? The severity also. How bad it is. Like, are they still functioning on a daily basis, or they can't go to school anymore? They can't participate in social activities anymore because of their anger, or maybe like their friends left them. You know, like those kind of things you definitely need to see, and also the areas of their life that have been impacted. If it's only at home, then maybe there's a family issue. But if it's at home, at school, at their other communities, then this is definitely something going on in them. Then this is not normal. So that's like the signs of when you should start reaching out to a mental health professional for your child.
Wow.
Wow.
It's challenging to have a kid.
I know. You know what? That explanation is, truthfully, is actually worrying me. 'Cause
Uh-oh.
Yes, Dad.
but my
You're doing your best.
My daughter is only 4 months old. I'm already thinking about the anger management issue, and like that will
if
happen
she's like
in
12,
10 years.
14,
I know.
16.
Start with yourself. Start with yourself.
Start with yourself.
Yeah. You are the role model, right?
Right.
Lucky I'm single.
Yeah. Well, what about hormonal change, though? I mean, hormonal change affects adults.
Yeah. Not only affected the pimples, but also their behavior. But
it happens. Is it more? I guess when or you're a certain age, there's hormonal changes, then it
Yeah.
affects you more, right? And is that a trigger as well?
Yes, definitely. I mean, as you go through puberty, there are so many changes happening, physically even, right? And emotionally, that causes lots of kind of mood changes, mood fluctuations that happen intensely and very fast. Like, one day you're happy, and then the next day you suddenly think, or maybe I'm not a cool kid. Maybe nobody likes me. That's something very common in teenagers, and that's why like their songs are so dramatic.
Yeah.
Right? And then they post lyrics, and why you think, what a dramatic kid. But that's actually caused by their mood fluctuations from the hormonal changes. But it's actually not only hormonal. It's also from their brain development, because they haven't really fully developed their brain as we have. And that actually we really only have a fully developed brain at the age of 25. So it's quite a journey
Whoa.
from your adolescence until you're 25.
That's a long journey.
Yeah, that's why nowadays people say that you shouldn't get married before 25 because you are not really that.
So there's a
well
reason for
prepared.
that.
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm not saying that you aren't allowed to, but your brain is like fully developed at the age of 25, which of course impacts your decision making,
Yeah.
your impulse control.
Yeah.
And then risk-taking behaviors. You know, when you're a teenager, you feel like you can do anything. You can drive fast and nothing will happen. Nobody will, crash. It's like you think that you think you're so optimistic in some ways, but not very realistic. And that's because your risk, the part of your brain that assesses the risk in life, it's not really functioning that well, right? It's still developing. It's still kind of trial and errors, It's still trying to figure out what's the good thing to do.
I can actually relate to that.
You passed that stage,
I
right?
passed that
Oh,
stage
okay.
where
No
in
more
my
trial.
life
No more
I
trial,
wasn't thinking that much when I did a lot of extreme sports. So those sports in the river, like when I went surfing, when I went
Bungee
bungee jumping.
Yep.
I did not feel any fear. And lucky I did all that
You're-
before 25.
I
You're
mean,
alive.
fortunately, you're safe, right?
Yeah, fortunately, I'm safe.
But that's actually why, that's the common cause of death for people under 25. It's all of those risk-taking behaviors. So it's good
Yeah.
for you to be here. It's good for you to be here.
Right. Okay. You know what? All right. Let's get back to the case
Okay,
at hand,
okay.
right? We're talking about violence.
Yeah.
Acts of violence, right? So what are the signs that an adolescent anger can lead to an act of violence? Is this something that I don't know? You can see signs when the person is younger, or is this something that usually develops when the person reaches puberty?
Okay, so because it's a biopsychosocial kind of thing, biologically, usually from even when the kid is still a baby, you will notice that there are different kind of babies.
Yes.
There are easy babies, there are slow to warm up babies, and there are difficult babies. These are the
They're
different kinds of
happy
temperaments.
babies.
Slow to warm
Slow
up.
to
Slow
warm
to
up.
warm up.
So the difference is the difficult kind of babies, they're sensitive to anything, like sounds or maybe different people who are carrying them. Those are the kind of difficult babies, the difficult temperament babies. And they usually grow up to be more sensitive as well. So they likely will be more easily triggered and be, angry. It might be a more often kind of emotion for them. So that's what you can see from their baby. But then there's the psychological aspect to it, right? When you're a teenager, you're trying to figure out who you are, right? So if this teenager already has kind of like, maybe their parents kind of already gave them the time and room to do self-exploration. As a teenager, they might feel quite confident in themselves, like, oh, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. These are the things that I'm allowed to do, and the things I'm not allowed to do. They might kind of already know that. But the teenagers who didn't really have that kind of room and time to explore themselves might be experiencing some kind of symptoms like trying to push the boundaries, trying to refuse what their parents say, trying to figure out who they are.
Become rebellious.
Rebellious. They want to know who am I without my parents? Who am I when I don't listen to my parents? They might be more experimental there, right? So when you see your kid kind of acting out, kind of, there's a sudden change in their behavior. Maybe they don't want to talk to you as much, or maybe it's they suddenly kind of feel like I don't want to go to social activities with you anymore, or maybe they're like completely just in their room for a week. Those are the kind of symptoms you need to think about. Okay, maybe she's experiencing something. Maybe he's going through something. That's one thing. But it doesn't mean they're going to do something violent, right?
Okay.
The second thing is look at who they're hanging out with. What do they do? What are their hobbies? And are they, are the friends involved in fighting activities? Because it's quite normal in like high school, junior high school for those kind of things to happen,
true.
right? And I'm sure like the teachers know about that. So if the teacher has noticed you, please like start focusing on your kid, start understanding what's really happening, because that's already a kind of sign that your kid might be involved too.
Yeah.
If they're friends with someone who's, already actively in aggressive behaviors. And then the other thing that you should notice is if they have access or not to tools that could be used for violence.
Like what?
Like knives,
Oh.
Some kids have rifle guns.
Rifle?
Yeah.
Whose kid
And
got
even
a
in
rifle?
the case that we were talking about, I mean, that kid had...
Kids in the
yeah,
States. Yes.
yeah. And so once you know that they have access to those kind of tools, you definitely need to educate them about anger management, about how your hormones are going up and down. You might be feeling really intense emotions, but it doesn't mean that you need to act on it. It doesn't mean that you have to, fight a friend who you disagree with. Those are the kind of things that a parent really has to tell their children. Or not, they will just learn from movies where it's completely normal in movies for people, to fight each other, right? It's
and
cool.
guns and
It's
stuff,
cool.
yes.
So that's good luck with that.
But in that sense, you have to be able to watch what your kids are actually watching.
And it's like, there's this thing where you might get overprotective, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing we don't want.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is we have to know, okay, watch this at a certain age. You can then watch, movies that are more intense.
Yeah.
But what's most important is we cannot actually control what they consume.
True.
It's actually impossible.
True.
But what we can do is give them the information and education that they need to know.
I can feel the anxiety from here.
My anxiety. You're talking about my anxiety. And therefore, I think this is a good time to take a break. So, see, the stories will continue after the break.
With Mahari. Do not go anywhere. I feel you.